All right, let's go ahead and call this regular meeting of the Marion County Board of Supervisors to order. Jake, roll call.
Keisha Johnner. Here. Mark Ramey.
Here.
Steve McCombs.
Here.
Would entertain a motion on this morning's agenda.
Make motion to approve this morning's agenda.
Second.
McCombs.
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
Very good. Communications. Jake,
I don't think so.
board,
Nope, none for me.
none for me. All right. Public comments, the portion of our agenda that the public can speak on items not listed on this morning's agenda. Board can't act on those items, but they could be topics for future meetings. So are there any public comments on items not listed on this morning's agenda? I know we've got Kim and Adam. We might have a few other folks. So Kim, you want to go first? Ladies first?
I will do that. Thank you. I just would like to thank everybody that was involved with our chemical exercise last Thursday. We had a very large group that attended. We had 73 folks in person that participated, several that Zoomed in for portions of it. So from 23 different organizations and agencies. The scenario was a chemical accident with a crop duster. So our various groups worked through that scenario. The staff at Marion County Public Health who led the design team and exercise, I think they did an exceptional job of making sure that we met all the requirements for several different entities. So we were able to meet the public health and hospital federal preparedness requirements for the year. It's our chemical year, so we met those requirements. The hospitals were able to meet their CMS and Joint Commission accreditation requirements because of this. So a lot of people helped us out a lot. We had the design team, of course, everybody who helped us by allowing us to use every inch of the facility. And that meant that we moved a lot of stuff over here to 3014. So thank you for accommodating that. Sheriff Sandholt and the Sheriff's Office and Dispatch who helped us in teaching and testing communications. Knoxville Hospital, especially Wendy Hopkins, led the hospital decon training. So she did an exceptional job of leading that. The EMAs from Clark County, ADLM and Mahaska. Clark helped with the planning. ADLM and Mahaska led the EMA and public health portions of the exercise. The medical examiner, EMS, and hospital portions were led by Terry Van Kooten and Wendy Hopkins. And then, of course, we had the 71st Civil Support Team that came down and taught us about the decontamination methods and new products and all of those kinds of things that are newer. So they taught the group about that, and then they brought their mobile lab and their mobile communication units. So we are just very, very blessed and thankful for all the people who helped us to do this, because a lot of people were able to check their requirements for regulatory work. So
Yeah,
thank
good.
you.
And board, do you have any questions for Kim? I mean, we're not an action item, but this is pretty important and sounded like a lot of coordination involved. Do you have anything you'd like to ask Kim based on our flyer?
Oh, Kim, I want to thank you for hosting this because it is pretty important that, like you said, people need to get their accreditation for those particular areas. And I think it's very important that we do this.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The staff worked really, really hard, and that was led by Stacy and Ray and Carrie.
Okay.
Led the entire thing and got it all coordinated. So
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
so
Thank you for the
very
recap,
much.
Kim.
Thank
Appreciate that.
you. Thank you. There's a flyer there. Steve, I don't know if you want to have that. You can have that. Very good. Any of the, Adam?
Good morning, board and public. My name is Adam Wadley. I'm here for the public comments. I have an interest in a county-owned property within the city limits of Melcher, Dallas at 203 Northeast Center Street. A little history on the property. The property was at one time the East Side Grocery Store and a gas station. Probably in the mid-80s, as I remember, the owners passed away, and the property was more or less left abandoned. It had gas pumps and underground storage tanks, and the county came in and I suppose with the assistance of the DNR and removed those and placed new soil in there. And I think it's kind of been under a watch list for several years. And it's been, from what I understand, the paperwork that Tyler had, it's been off the watch list for a number of years. And just wondering if you would be interested in parting ways with it or doing something other than just have it sit there.
Okay.
Yeah, in my research, Adam, I think that would be the only hindrance to a sale would be that the DNR has give it their blessing that it's cleaned up. And as far as I know, that has been taken care of.
It looks like it by the paperwork, but I'm not involved with a lot of those kinds of properties. So I hope that's the case.
I believe it to be so.
It looks to be.
What we'll do, Adam, is we'll make this an agenda item at our next meeting and we'll, Jared, I don't know if you're dealing with this or Ross would be the appropriate person, but if we could have Ross attend as well. I know he's got some background on this as well, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great. Work through the process and see what we can work out.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
Adam, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Adam.
Are there any other public comments on items not listed? Sir?
Yes, I'm Norman Fry with Pleasant Grove Township. We're having trouble having meetings and everything. I brought a lady with me that is interested in being a trustee. And I'd like to get her on as a trustee if we could, so we could have meetings.
Norman, do you not have quorum right now or?
We lost a guy.
Okay,
He passed away.
okay.
So there's only two of us, and we need the third one.
Very good. Jake? Or Jared, or whoever's passing the mic to them.
My office has dealt with the Pleasant Grove Township trustees quite a bit in the last year. They are having difficulties right now setting a meeting. I spoke to each of the members yesterday, and I believe we have a date for a meeting because they desperately need to have one. And I, for whatever reason, had difficulty doing that, but we've got a date set. I plan on attending. I've been requested to attend by the Public Information Board, and I'm going to go there and talk about some open meeting laws issues and things like that. But the code does provide for this board, the Board of Supervisors, to appoint someone until the next election in case of, where we have only two members. The board or the township trustees have not met in some time. It may make sense, of course, the board can do whatever they want, but it may make sense to try to have this meeting to see if we can make progress on that. But if we're not able to get that done at that meeting, it's probably, in my opinion, best that the board consider appointing someone at this time.
Okay.
And
So-
that would be the question I had was whether is it legal for us to appoint someone? That was the only question I would have had, and you answered it already, Jared.
Yeah, I think a few months ago, I wrote a letter to the Pleasant Grove Township trustees outlining this procedure. They have 30 days to try to fix the problem, but if they haven't done it, which they have not, then the board can step in and appoint someone.
But in the current makeup of the board, they could have a meeting.
Yes, I think they could have a meeting and they should have a meeting. They desperately need to have a meeting, in my opinion. And so I hope that happens.
Okay.
So, but I think, they have two members and they have a clerk. But Yeah, that's, I just
So,
want to
so
win.
you, so you're meeting with them, in this upcoming meeting, and then post that meeting, I guess, a recommendation to us on action steps, Jared, on what would be the next step. I mean, to Steve's point, we can appoint somebody, but let's see what the outcome of your discussion, with the trustees would be.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Does
And
that
I'll,
sound reasonable?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'll
We can't,
report.
can't take any action on it, but that's the best recommendation I can give right now.
Thank you. And I'll report back to the board, after we've had the meeting and we can go from there.
Okay, very good. Thank
Jared,
you.
quick question. Is your meeting before our next meeting?
No, I think we were April 29th was
Okay.
the date that we talked about. Again, it was incredibly difficult to find a time for the board to meet or for the trustees to meet. And that was the soonest date that we could get everybody to agree
Okay.
on.
So sometime in May, we'll have a recommendation then.
That would be my hope. And if something changes between now and then, and it looks like we're not going to be able to get a meeting or something happens, I'll report back to the board as well.
Very good. Very good.
Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Sir?
Hi, thank you. I'll be very brief. My name is Doug Stout. I work for Congresswoman Miller Meeks. I'm brand new in her Indianola office. So basically, I just want everyone to know that we're there. The office is staffed, although there's a one-person office and I work all over the western part of her district. So I'm often not physically in the office, but we are there and we're open for constituent concerns or just to make your opinion known. So again, it's Doug Stout with Congresswoman Miller Meeks' office and we're at 216 North Henry. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank
Doug.
you.
Thank you.
Hey Doug, if you have a chance or you guys do have cards, could you give us, one at your
Yes,
convenience?
absolutely. I got
Thank
mine
you.
lined up.
Thank you. I saw another hand. Yes, sir.
My name is Robert Latch. I own the old Merrill place on 92 there, on 18th Avenue 92, old white barn. I've been there for 5 years, and you'll have to forgive me. This is the first one of these public forums I've been to. So if I don't approach it properly, I'm sorry.
No, no worries.
Gentlemen there informed me this isn't on today's agenda, but the last 5 years I've been dealing with the county roads engineering department, and I'm done complaining. I probably should have been to these meetings multiple times prior. I've tried every option possible. I've killed them with kindness. I've flat out gotten a, pardon me, piss and match with the grader guy before. They say they have a hard time maintaining drivers that do a good job. Once last year they did a good job, and I usually try to give them the benefit of the doubt, but right as soon as they leave the road, I know they're not coming back to fix it. They do a windrow, which I understand the purpose of a windrow, but 9 times out of 10, they don't put it on the non-residential side of the property. They put it right in front of our homes. And right now I have a pile that is, I'm a carpenter, so I can see something and tell you within a quarter of an inch what size it is. I have a pile that is 2 feet tall, 10 foot long, and 5 foot wide of grass chunks right next to I've got 3 driveways. And the only reason he's unblocked my driveways is because I've gotten a piss and match with him. So now he makes it a point to do it. All my other neighbors own tractors and equipment to clear it themselves, but they shouldn't have to do that.
What was your name and what was the address you're talking about?
Robert Latch.
Robert
Yep,
Latch,
I live at 1055 18th Ave.
1055.
Yep, 18th Ave. It's the first gravel road right off of 92. There's an old white barn there. That's our acreage. And I got plenty of pictures to show you for the past several years. And I kid you not, it looks like the world's biggest gopher is building a trench, a sandbagging along our entire property from end to end, 3 full acres. And the pile will be this tall. I'm not over exaggerating, this tall, this wide. And he swears up and down that the grass chunks are gonna break down. They do not. The only reason they do is because after several weeks of it looking like trash in front of our property, I drive over it with my pickup to try to smooth it down a little bit. Of course, by then the grass chunks break, but the gravel does not, and the gravel itself is the majority of it. I guarantee if this was somebody that was rich or filed one complaint, it would be dealt with immediately. And I guarantee you, nobody would want to walk out their front door and see their entire property line lined with just chunks of crap, the full length of the property.
Let me get this straight, Robert. The major complaint is the windrow, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I've even asked them many times to move it to the opposite side of the road. And they say that you rotate. 9 times out of 10, it is on the residential side. And he knew I was coming to the meeting this morning. And I think he just tried to get a little ahead of the curve here, by calling me this morning at 8:30 because they stopped out yesterday to take pictures. And I could tell they were very upset themselves, but nothing ever changes with it. And so I've been complaining for 5 years. I want something done about it because nobody wants, I believe it was you I emailed, last year. Were you in charge last year? Or
Yep, yep, that was Jeremy. Yep.
And while they may be doing, you said you live in the country yourself.
Yep, yep.
While you say they may be doing great on your road, I know my neighbors who couldn't be here this morning, they've been there at least 10, 12 years and they've been complaining nonstop and nothing's changed. I've been here 5 years and normally they would want to be here with me, but I told them I'd speak on their behalf too. Nothing's ever changing. And I'm tired of, like I said, I've tried killing them with kindness. I'm not confrontational, but I certainly can be if need be. And I'm done looking at it. He called me this morning saying they're going to move to the opposite side of the road in a couple of days after it breaks down a little bit. It's not going to, and I'm not going to hold my breath that they will. If they do, it's because I flat out threatened to go above their heads and
Well,
see that
Robert,
this ends because I'm tired of our property looking like crap.
yeah,
You know, I got a business to run,
Yeah.
and I just
well,
nobody wants to walk out the front door and look at a full line of
no, I agree.
huge chunks.
I agree. So let us, we can't take any action. It's public
Right.
comment, but let us get a chance to talk with Tyler and investigate the situation and see if we can get it resolved to your satisfaction.
Because I know he's been very condescending. He's not condescending with me because I have to dial it down in order to be able to speak civilly with him. But it's the same gentleman every single time. He has informed me that they've gone through road grader after road grader, people that operated them. So I understand there's new and there's a learning curve to do it, but I've got family members that do it over. I know it's in different parts of the state actually, and his excuse is, well, it's different here. We use different gravel and such. I'm like, nobody's property it needs to look like this. Right. So it's one thing if it's on the opposite side of the road or if there's no houses, but if you're going to do this job, I mean, make people's property lines look at least halfway decent.
Right.
You know, I don't want to maintain it myself, nor should I have to. But I flat out told them, like, listen, I'm about ready to borrow my neighbor's skid loader just to flatten it all out every single time.
Right.
Because it just never ends, you know. But
Well,
I've got plenty of pictures if you'd like to see just a few real quick.
well, if you could maybe provide those after
Okay.
the meeting or leave them with Renee if you've got them on something we can look at. But we'll get with Tyler, we'll look into it, and we'll get back to you in an expedited way. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thanks, Robert.
Very good. Are there any other public comments, again, on items not on this morning's agenda? Renee, anything online? All right, very good. Thank you. Appreciate all those comments this morning. Consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Make motion to approve today's consent agenda.
Second.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
All right, very good. On to business. First item, we've got a discussion and a presentation from Knoxville Community Schools in the city regarding the VA district map. Who's leading off? Brian?
Yep, morning. Thank you guys for having us. I'm here on behalf of the school and the city to talk about the veterans redevelopment area. I know this is something that we've discussed multiple times in different venues, but we thought it was now time to kind of bring it formally to the board to discuss this and see what next possible action steps may need to be taken here. Just to give everyone kind of a brief overview of what we're talking about. That great picture there was what 2020, I think, when we when Mark paid him $1 for the ground. And so anyway, that was kind of the turning point when we took the property over. The city and the county together had an agreement. City would demolish the buildings. County would demolish the buildings. The city would be responsible for redevelopment. In a lot of those meetings, Mark, you were involved in a lot of those with Aaron Adams, Heather, myself, whoever was involved back then, going through that. We had talked about just our original intention on what do we do with this land? What is the plan for all this? We have 150 acres. We're going to grow. We want to put housing in. And one of the thoughts that we had from the very beginning was the school district, knowing that, land's hard to come by. And so would it be good of us to dedicate a small piece of ground for the school? Is it future growth? Is it practice fields, whatever it may be? And so if you go to the next slide, I think this was the original concept plan that the county had Confluence do. They did a really good job of putting together kind of an overall view of the 150 acres and what it could look like. And in that, the red box, the blue area, shaded area is where we talked about area for the school. It kind of shows us a building on there. I don't want to focus on new school, not new school. I want to more focus on just the land itself. Is that just future growth? Is it places to play soccer practice, flag football practice for the youth, whatever that is. And we just thought it would be a good idea to dedicate some of that ground, 10 acres of that 150, just for future use. And I didn't want to, my biggest fear, I guess, being a part of those conversations was putting us in a bad position 20, 30 years down the road, where we're saying, why didn't we, look at this? Why don't we have the opportunity to, we now need more ground and we don't have it. So we just thought this would be a good idea. Again, that's the original concept plan in 2021, I believe, was when they finally completed that. If you go to the next slide, you'll kind of see now the red box has moved to the north half. We originally thought that the campground area might be something that would happen, and we now know that years later that's not going to happen. It's probably not something we're going to do. So the school had approached us and said, hey, if you guys are thinking about doing ground, we may like to go up on that north side. And so in looking at it, talking to some of our developers and different people, they thought, well, that's actually probably a good idea for us. It's a better place for them, kind of creates a better buffer between that railroad track and some of the residential to the south. And so we're in the middle of working with Confluence now. The city has hired Confluence to redo the concept plan. 4 years, 3-4 years has passed. We now have phase 1 done. And we're kind of evolving a little bit. And so we want to show those changes in the concept plan. And we're trying to kind of scale it back a little bit to give it more of just a broad overview of the areas that we're going to develop. Instead of maybe it being so specific towards row housing or townhomes, we're just going to leave it as a zone, kind of a residential zone or a commercial zone, whatever those are, to kind of keep our options open a little bit. So as you can see, that's kind of the idea, the thought of moving them to the north up to that next to the laundry building. Again, we don't know, what will happen with that in the future here, but I think that's probably a good place for them. I think the city and the school both agree it would be a good place. And so I guess for us, keeping this kind of short and sweet for you, our ask, I guess, is just guidance from you guys on next action steps. This has kind of been brought forward a little bit quicker because of the city, our fault. We had the school was nice enough to partner with the city. They knew we were in need of land for our public safety building. And when we did a study, an engineer study on the best possible location, it came out right across the street from the old middle school building. And when the school heard about that, they kindly approached us and said, hey, we have an old building that we're taking down. We're going to have green space there. Would you guys be interested in that spot? Which was a blessing because for us to find 7 to 10 acres somewhere else in the town that was a good response time wasn't going to happen. So we were very fortunate to have that partnership. With that, we have taken their practice field. So they have a practice field back there behind the old middle school. So that field, that green space will be gone, and they'll be in need of more green space, like I said, flag football, soccer practice, whatever that may be. So that's why we felt it was an important thing to bring forward to you guys today to start to bring those action steps forward to see what's the next move as far as getting that property into the school's hands for that future use, future development, whatever it is.
Okay. Brian, thank you very much. Board, discussion item. Cassie, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Just a little bit. We would really like to thank both the Board of Supervisors and the city for all of the conversation that has been happening over the last few years. I think it's really good for taxpayers because as we look at helping each other out with land, it's land that has not been on the tax rolls in the past. And so it's actually having the opportunity for the new City Hall and Public Safety Building to not take previous commercial or residential property and be able to just go in where the school was is a win. And as the school looks at future developments as well, the VA ground also had not been under the tax rolls. So we really feel like long-term planning, this is good for taxpayers, it's good for our community, and it's going to be great for the county as well. We believe we've got a lot of options that we might be able to look at for that ground in the future. We really like the idea of having it butt up against some agriculture in the back, as well as having the racetrack is never in session when school is in session. And the just having housing around that area is also a benefit, I think. We believe that having school space in that area will help the development continue to grow and people be excited about putting houses out there.
Mhm.
So we'd entertain any questions.
Yeah. No, very good. Thank you. Board, good discussion. Maybe Renee, go back to the map and just so we have that up there as a reference point.
I think it makes perfect sense. We already had in concept one, there's a school expansion, future expansion, so it's not like we're given new ground. We're just kind of moving things around. I really like the idea of the buffer zone between the residential area and the railroad and the fairgrounds, racetrack. I would think it'd be beneficial to everybody, especially the fairground, especially if they can get a deal worked out with the railroad about a crossing, that they'd have overflow parking there. I'm assuming you guys are open to that idea. It makes perfect sense to me.
Cassie, I just have one question. And regarding the land and possible, like what the city received and what you're asking here, how much ground was where the middle school was at? That would be the only question I have.
So interestingly enough, and this was not by design at all, but the gift of land that the school just provided to the city was 10.2 acres.
Okay.
And if you go to the original concept plan, it was 10.2 acres.
Okay, good. Okay.
And I just noticed that I was looking at the map this morning, so.
And thank you for that clarity, because that was the question I think that would probably be asked by us also, so. I do think that we have been talking about this for many years. And I do think with the growth that depending upon what the future has, and you talk about the soccer, and I don't know if there was, back in my day, I'm showing my age, but there used to be the football practice, some of it was there. So yeah, different things that you could do with that ground also, but yeah, appreciate that.
No, very good. Yeah, for me, Brian, you're right. We spent a lot of time working on this at the outset. I can't believe it's both been a long time, but it's also gone by pretty quick, right? When you see the progress. I'll be curious to see what your confluence revision is, because they did such a wonderful job getting community input on this first plan. Remember, we went through, they did interviews with folks, and that's what kind of was the genesis of this and brought about the whole idea of having a school location within the VA. So as they go through the revision idea, I assume they're going to follow a similar process?
Yes, and really a lot of that, the concept, Mark, will stay the same, taking that input from the community and everything else. It's kind of, like I said, kind of taking a step back and maybe leaving it at a little higher level instead of like now you see the row housing specific or town housing. That will just be a box that maybe says residential.
Right.
To
Provide
kind of
some
leave it open.
flexibility. Yeah.
A little more flexibility there. So we didn't want to, we don't want people to feel forced or, to think that, okay, that this has to be row housing. Well, it's just a concept. If it's row housing is not what you want, we're open to that conversation. So we kind of left it a little higher level. But for the most part, I think the boxes, the colors, a lot of them will stay the same, just removing some of those labels and stuff. But we'll bring that forward, so you guys will have a chance to see it once we get it done. We were hoping to have it done, but we haven't.
Well, I think once you get that done, Brian, Cassie, I think, this is what we talked about. It stays true to the plan, true to what we were trying to accomplish when we took on the project. So I'll look forward to seeing what that result is, and then we can move forward and have a board discussion on what the next steps might be.
Okay.
Does that sound fair?
Yes.
Board, any other questions?
No, I have none.
Yeah, if I can just ask an administrative question, and
Mhm.
I have to do that. So I believe the 2080 agreement between the references the confluence plan. So if there's a new confluence plan.
We'd have
that
to revise it.
Updated.
Yeah, we'll have to
Okay,
revise
Just
it.
wanted to put that on your.
I appreciate it though. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to close discussion on this item?
Make motion to close discussion.
Second,
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
aye.
Ramey.
Aye. Next, we have a special event application for the Knoxville Music Boosters. I don't know if there's anybody here to speak about that application.
This is a new one. The application was filed online, which was cool, through our website. It comes to our email, so that's why I move it forward, like most special events. You saw the information in front of you, the design, the date. I emailed out to all department heads that I think might be affected or could, and I don't believe we've received any responses, so
But everything checks the boxes.
they've
Jake?
done everything from the administrative side.
Okay. Any issues,
I have no issue.
Chris?
None whatsoever.
All right. Is there a motion?
Make motion to approve the special event application for the Knoxville Music Boosters.
Second,
McCombs,
aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. Resolution 2024-28, which is secondary roads budget. Tyler?
So the, the budget presented is in the Iowa DOT chart of accounts, and mirrors the county auditor chart of accounts budget with the total revenue and total expense. There is one slight discrepancy. The revenue is different by about $500 due to a typo when I submitted the county budget. Doesn't matter. Not the first time we have submitted budgets that are slightly different. In the past, we may or may not do an amendment to one or the other to make them reconcile. But the majority of it is, I mean, really all of it other than that $500 in revenue is the same
Okay.
as the budget presented during my budget meeting in January.
Excellent. Jake, any questions from your side?
No, we process our chart of accounts on our side, then it translates, and they have to do a lot more detail on their DOT budget than we do on our chart of account. So no, this is the process we do for years. The interesting part is Tyler, when the House File 718 happened and moved all of our approval dates back to April 30, and they did not change the DOT. So technically, this DOT budget is being submitted based off of our proposed budget by the deadline that's still required, and then the county will actually approve our budget later this month.
Okay. Okay, very
So,
good. Board, any
So-
questions?
So
But there's no,
Have
Right.
to amend our Iowa.
Yeah.
DOT
We would
budget
just have to
if
amend.
the county budget is not approved as presented.
correct.
Right.
Correct. Any questions for Tyler? Sounds like same thing we approved during budget, other than a $500 typo.
No, I don't have any questions.
Steve,
No, I have none.
is there a motion?
Make a motion, we approve resolution 2024-28.
No second.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
Thanks, Tyler. 2024-29, which is another secondary roads, the 5-year program.
Yeah, so during my budget presentation in January and what you just approved there is Iowa DOT budget, that is what we consider our operating budget. This is our road department operating budget, what we do to maintain the roads with our own staff and personnel and our own equipment. Our 5-year construction program is generally contracted work. Occasionally, I will throw a large maintenance project in there. However, we don't have any of those this time around. So this is generally work that we're contracting out or we're partnering with another county on if it's on a county line road. So I'll go through some high level bullet points on each of our specific funding sources. So within our secondary road operating budget, we do set aside a portion of that budget called local construction. So these are for local roads that are not on a federal aid or a farm to market route, for which the county is responsible for with our own either local secondary road budget, general fund, local option sales tax. So we have those budgeted within our secondary road budget using road use tax and our portion of property tax that comes to our department. This year, I did shift a lot of the dollars, you've probably heard me say this the last 2 or 3 years, to maintenance. The Iowa DOT changed the language on what's considered maintenance improvements and construction a few years ago. So again, we are shifting a lot of those dollars. So you've seen this be up around $700,000, $800,000, $900,000. In the past, we're under 500,000 this year because of a $400,000 shift to maintenance versus construction. So it's just a budgeting thing. We do have one county line bridge with Jasper County. They will be completing that with their bridge crew. They have pile driving equipment and beam setting equipment that we do not have. We have done preliminary design work on that, and that will happen this upcoming year. We are the lead programming project for that. But Jasper County will do the bulk of the work. We will reimburse for half the materials and labor. We also have the start of a 168th bridge project. So to meet the, some of the environmental requirements to do tree clearing before bats go to roost or to nest or whatever they do, we have to do tree clearing in a certain time of the year, which won't line up with our bid letting date that we have planned for that bridge project. So once we get preliminary design done and know the right-of-way needs and right-of-way acquisition, then we're able to determine the extent of the project and how much tree clearing will have to be done, but we will pay for that locally. And ultimately, that will be a federal aid bridge project that we'll talk about later. We also have 2 DOT match projects. So the DOT approached us a couple years ago. I have presented funding agreements to you previously that you approved for paved side road approaches on Highway 92 and also along Highway 163. This is for the safety of our operators as well as the safety of the traveling public. And we have many issues and many requests for this, specifically to Highway 163. Farm to market. So annually, right now, we're receiving about $1.6 million per year. So Marion County's allocation of farm to market funds has increased slightly. I think maybe last year you heard me say that there was a reconciliation based off traffic counts and number of millions of vehicle miles driven, and Marion County's traffic volumes are on the uptick. So it's a weighted formula for our road use tax and our farm to market distribution. So because of that, we are receiving slightly more of the state's share of farm to market dollars, which again comes from road use tax, ultimately state collected road use tax. So ultimately, we've seen about a 14 to 18% increase overall. 6.4% of that was a federal aid redistribution. So with the FAST Act that was passed a few years ago, there was a portion of federal money that the state was receiving that they swapped basically, and then are depositing that into farm to market accounts for the counties. Marion County, we're receiving right around $90,000 per year from that federal aid redistribution. We have 2 speculative projects included in our farm to market program. And what I mean by that, these are grants that we have not yet applied for or are currently in the process of applying for and haven't heard the verdict on whether we've been awarded. One of those would be the Community Project Fund through Miller Meek's office that we recently submitted. So we do have T17, which is the Community Project Fund grant application. And then we would be looking at another federal aid discretionary grant project for the T15 corridor between Pella and Knoxville, which will be a much larger project.
Tyler, really quick on the T17 project. Is that then from 92 and
Yep.
then, yep,
So
to the
from
south?
Old Highway 92 to Highway 5. And you'll actually see that project in our program twice. We applied for community project funding last year and were not awarded. I'm applying again this year. If we don't get that, So if we are awarded community project funds, I have that budget for a January 26 letting. If we know later this year that we are not awarded a grant for that project, we will go ahead and do that and let it in January of 2025, just using farm to market funds. However, it will go from a rehabilitation to an improvement. So we will just, because of the availability of our farm to market funds, we'll just be doing kind of the minimal overlay thickness versus kind of a pavement rehabilitation that's more sustainable and longer lasting and better bang for our buck ultimately. Does that answer your question?
I mean,
So that's
what
an
do you mean
anti-
by better bang for your buck? If we were gonna do
Well,
if we received the Miller Meeks, then.
because an overlay is simply an overlay.
Okay.
You know, there's no, if we have the availability of grant funding, we'll be doing a couple of different tactics to retard reflective cracking. Because an overlay, putting asphalt over what was ultimately a concrete pavement, the cracks will reflect through. However, there are tactics that are more costly, like a different asphalt mixture that we can do to help retard those cracks. You know, we did that on Highway G46 and on T17 elevator road portion.
You would do that though if we received the funds.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
We would not have
We wouldn't do
enough
it
in
if
our
we,
farm market account to
Okay.
do that otherwise.
I just wanted to make sure
But
there's clarity.
we'll need to do something if not awarded. The grant.
Bare minimum, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
So for FY 25, we have S45. So originally this was a project slated for a couple years down the road. However, the previous, I think it was FY 23 or 4 Miller Meeks grant that we received, Community Project Fund grant, that came in well under our estimate. So it freed up about $1 million for us to do another project. So we moved the S45 project ahead. And this is from the Lucas County line to G76 there at Melcher, Dallas. And then we also have the T17 project from 5 to Old 92 that would be if we were not awarded a Community Project Fund grant. Later in the 5-year program beyond FY 25, we're basically going down the list of our highest volume pavements that are at or beyond their useful life. So we're doing a lot of maintenance. We're doing some preservation tactics right now to try to keep those roads hanging on. For example, T15, T14, and the Knoxville area roads. So it'd be McKimber, South Attica Road. And we've got patching plan, we've got micro surfacing planned, mastic joint leveling. So we're just trying to hold those on for another 3 to 5 years until we can fund those projects. Hopefully, bids come in good over the next couple of years and we can tackle those. And then ultimately, that will have us borrowed ahead by FY 28. So we'll be borrowed ahead for the next 3 years in our farm to market account, meaning we'll be borrowing against other counties' accumulated balances, and we'll be in debt as far as our allocation. So it's not debt that we're paying interest on, but we're borrowing against the total fund of farm to market in the state.
So what if it changes?
Then we won't let projects. And the
That'll-
state, so if the ability to borrow ahead changes, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Iowa DOT local systems keeps tabs on that. They have a balance sheet that we get quarterly, keeping tabs on that, and there are borrowing ahead restrictions implemented or removed, depending, and they don't do that quarterly or even annually. You know, they have a pretty good handle on the projects in upcoming lettings and how much balance there's going to be, what revenue, road use tax distribution, how that's all factoring in. So I think it's probably 2 or 3 years ago was the last time we saw a further restriction on the borrowing ahead. And they can do other things like allow you to accumulate more. There's also an accumulated balance restriction. So if you're accumulating too much money and not spending it, you get penalized. So they want you to let projects.
Sure.
So they have some flexibility plus or minus there to change that and monitor as things change, like maybe revenue stream.
Okay.
And-
But there's no set percentage for borrowing ahead based on you're at 110% of what you could receive, 112, there's no, it's
Yeah, it's-
governed by DOT.
So it's based off your estimated allocation. So 1.6 million, we can borrow ahead in 4 years worth of
Okay,
that 1.6
that's what I- all right.
million. Yeah.
That's, yeah.
So again, getting into the fourth and fifth year of our 5-year program, I don't have projects currently slated. Let these next couple of years play out and and if things go as planned, we would want our farm to market balance to accumulate and at least get back in the black a little bit.
Okay.
At which time we would be shifting to federal aid a little bit more. So we've been kind of in federal aid here this year and the early part of next year. We'll be more in the farm to market type projects over the coming years, and then back to federal aid in the latter half of our 5-year program. So our federal aid bridge funding is the highway bridge program. Our annual allocation has increased slightly there, again, because of the FAST Act and some changes at the Iowa DOT on how funding is distributed. So for example, in FY15, which was the first year that I was budgeting and doing a 5-year program, our annual allocation was $390,000 for Marion County. In 2023, it was 294. So it actually went down. That actually was because of Marion County. We were replacing bridges that were structurally deficient. We were reducing the number of our load limited bridges. We were replacing federal aid eligible bridges. So the square footage of bridge deck and the number of total bridges that we had was reduced. So we got less money.
Hey, Tyler.
Then the fastest, yep.
I just want the public to know, and you can speak to this, but as far as the funding streams, when it comes to farm to market, local routes, federal aid routes, the counties are limited to the mileage that they can designate farm to market routes.
Yeah, we're limited to a certain percentage of our roads that can be designated as farm to
Correct.
market, which is roughly 35%. Yeah, it varies slightly, but
Yeah.
yeah, and we need to
So-
probably do a check on that. We've got a couple that we probably need to shift around a little bit
Yeah,
right
so
now.
we
but
look
yes.
real, we look real hard at traffic flows when
Yes.
we do these designations on.
And federal aid designations, we don't have much control on that. They do, for the most part, mirror your farm to market system with a few exceptions. Federal aid eligible bridges, however, do not necessarily have to be on a farm to market route.
Yeah, I just
But they
want
have to
people,
meet
I
other
just want
criteria.
people to understand that we're kind of behind the gun too when we figure out how we're gonna spend these monies.
Yeah, farm to market and federal aid bridge or road funding is earmarked for specific systems.
Correct.
So, like I said, in 2023, we were at 294,000. Once the FAST Act came into play, local systems and the DOT and the County Engineers Association got their head around the new funding. There was a distribution change. And our current FY25 allocation of federal bridge funding is $456,000, which has been extremely helpful for us. That actually changed our borrow ahead for the Flagler Bridge from nearly 4 years to about 2. So we're still going to be borrowed ahead once the bridge is complete, in debt to ourselves and essentially, but we'll recover quicker. So we do have a few bridges programmed, like I said earlier, 168. So this is a local road. So it's not on a federal aid or farm to market route, as Steve pointed out, but it is a federal aid eligible bridge over Cedar Creek. So we will be doing 168th, which means the county will have to cash flow that through our secondary road budget and then ultimately being reimbursed from the federal aid. And then the second project I have in the 5-year program would be Highway S45. So this is the segment I talked about earlier, south of Melcher, Dallas. Whether we actually do that project when we get to FY28 is yet to be determined, but I put that project on the list because it's the next paved road bridge that's due for replacement at this time. Now that could change and we could have other things that show up on other parts of our system that may make us reconsider, because we have done some preservation tactics on that bridge a couple of different times to try to extend the life. And then our last of our federal aid and major funding sources would be what's called our STBG, which is Surface Transportation Block Grant. This is our federal aid road funding. Our annual allocation there, when I started 10 years ago, was 432,000, and at 23 it was 431,000, so stagnant. And this year, it is 456,000, so minimal increase there. I'm actually not sure why that's increasing. When the FAST Act came out, originally, we were showing about a 4% decrease because the FAST Act took away the ability for tap flex to be put into road projects. It's now maintained solely for trails and alternative transportation. So we've already talked about the projects here, because I'm matching them with farm to market. So Highway S45 and T14. So when we do a federal aid road project, we have to match. So I've talked about them because we're matching farm to market with federal aid. So we will stay borrowed ahead through the next 5 years, about 2.8 years on average in our SDBG. You know, when I started, I kind of took, we were getting a lot more bang for our buck when I started 10 years ago. And my mindset was always to stay as close to zero, you know, not get borrowed ahead too much. We can't do that anymore. I mean, we'd be waiting 5-6 years to let projects if we were going to do that. And so just, could we get there again? Absolutely. It just mean not doing, just doing one project versus two every 5 years with our federal aid. Farm to market, it's easier to recover typically. And we have a lot more flexibility there because 1.6 million is a lot more than 400,000. So local option sales taxes could be an option for us for road funding. We've used that in the past. We're using it now for some road department things. We've used it in the past for things like seal coats, drainage improvements. We've done full depth reclamations on some of our rural residential access routes. And so currently, some of these projects are not shown in this 5-year program. They're just in my own spreadsheet, kind of some back burner items, but we do have some upcoming projects, joint projects with cities on local roads that I don't believe we will be able to fund out of our secondary road budget, that local construction allocation in our budget that I discussed earlier. So I will in the future be turning to the board to see if, do you want to partner with the city of Monroe on this county line project as they've requested? But how do we fund it?
Right.
Is it through local option sales tax? So I have another comment on city projects here in a minute. I just want to go through a few high level things with our program. So, you know, a couple years ago, we talked about safety projects and matching and tying up some of the farm to market balance that we talked about. We're really not doing much of that anymore. That's just tying up too much of our cash flow. We need to focus on the material projects of maintaining the infrastructure that we have. Are there some that we will do? Yes, because unfortunately, safety funding is retroactive. So if you have an area that's problematic, you get the crash history to make you eligible, unfortunately. It's not a proactive safety improvements. So are there places in the county where I want to do things because we will lose the crash history to be eligible? Yeah, we may look at that if things allow. So we talked about really a handful of projects in the 5-year program. There are over $10 million worth of road projects that we didn't talk about that are at or beyond the useful life. I think a couple years ago, I said it was around 6 million or 16 million, excuse me.
Yeah.
And a large part of that is because of the community project fund grant we got.
Right.
8.5 miles of G28 is one of the largest projects we're going to take on. 33,000 tons of asphalt is not a project we do with our own money. So that was a huge, huge benefit to Marion County and reduce some of our burden of maintaining existing infrastructure that's at or past due its useful life. So 10+ million in road projects. That's about 26 miles of pavements we didn't discuss. I didn't mention any of those roads today because we can't fund them locally or with any of our state or federal allocations. Throughout the next 5 years, more roads will get added to that list. Roads that were done right before I got here overlaid with 1.5 to 2.5 inches of asphalt, those only last about 15 years and they start falling apart. So, you know, in the next 5 years, those roads are going to be coming due. And if we can't fund the projects that are due now, how are we going to fund those? Same problem I've been talking about for
Right,
years.
right.
We also have $10 to $12 million in bridge projects that are past due. You know, some of those, they're not past due, but they're the estimated years of remaining life by our bridge inspection consultant is telling us we need to start planning for replacement or major rehabilitation for these bridges. None of those I would consider, you know, on our farm to market route are major. We have some kind of minor farm to market route projects. I think beyond 5 years, we'll get into some of our paved road routes like Skunk River bridges, some major Cedar Creek, English Creek Bridge on T-17. You know, we're going to get there here pretty quickly. And that number is going to grow from 10 million to 20 pretty quick. Because I haven't given you an update on bridges in a while, you know, I've kept my 5-year program presentations pretty short the last couple of years. And so I thought this year I'd take a little time to expand on this, because I actually met with our bridge inspection consultant last Friday. Total, we have 183 bridges that are that the federal aid recognizes as a bridge by their classification. In addition, we have 14 others that are less than 20 feet in length that we also have inspected and we classify as a bridge, or they're on a county line and they're inspected and currently maintained by an adjacent county, but ultimately we're still responsible for part of that cost. We have 34 posted bridges. 23 of those have a load limit. So the posting might be 1 lane, would be the alternate to a load posting. We have, and that is up, 34 total postings is up. We were, I think, in the range of like 15 prior to some new legislation a couple years ago that changed how bridges are rated or what loading we are rating at as counties. And we've talked about that before. We have 25 structurally deficient bridges. Of those 25, 6 of them are on level B or C roads. So these are on dirt roads. 6 of the 25 structurally deficient. Going back to the load limits, 23 load limited bridges, we had no new ones show up as of last Friday when we got our most recent inspection results from our consultant. We have 35 bridges with less than a 10-year estimated remaining life, 20 with less than a 5-year estimated remaining life. 13 of these that are due for replacement could likely be done for less than $100,000 each, meaning there may be a bridge now. Could they be a culvert or a box culvert in the future? Yes. Why aren't we doing those? Well, you heard me mention earlier that some of those are federal aid eligible. Cost, benefit, and risk versus reward is something that we have to look at. Some of these, many of these that are structurally deficient and federal aid might be on a level C road. And that road, we're just collecting dollars off of that. If that bridge has issues and it needs to be closed, that level C is still accessible from each direction. It's not a dead end. So we're just looking at the cost benefit, risk versus reward. Yeah, we could go do that, but right now we're still collecting dollars that we're putting towards some of these major bridge projects off of that bridge in our allocation.
I have
Not huge dollars, but
I have a question,
Yep.
Tyler. Are we looking at these bridges different now since the state has kind of forced us into this all systems permit? Are we looking at things different now?
So inspections haven't changed. What's changed is load ratings. So we're rating bridges for heavier loads or going to. We did it a couple years ago because of legislation that was in 2017, I think. And then in 2021 or 2022, there was another legislative change and we have to re-rate again. And then last year they changed that same legislation and made some fine tuning. We have only done the new ratings that was passed a couple years ago on our paved routes. We don't have to have it done until July 1 of 2025. But we do need to make provisions to have it done sooner than later because the legislative amendments done in last year made it so these heavier loads can travel on any route from where the truck is loaded to unloaded, which means any road in the county.
Right, we have no control.
And currently, those bridges may not be, and most likely are not rated for those heavier loads.
And what's confusing, I think, to the public and is when they talk about a bridge law, it's not necessarily the bridge. They're talking about basically axle spacings on the vehicle.
Actual spacings and the overall length of the
Right,
vehicle. Yes.
Right.
So those are state legislative changes. There are some federal legislative changes, which we've had to budget for additional ratings as well. So I've almost doubled our bridge inspection budget in the upcoming fiscal year
Right.
for this.
Right.
So there's a couple permit loads and emergency vehicles. We have to work with Jeff and the local fire departments and evaluate their apparatus and get the load limits, or excuse me, the vehicle gross weights and axle spacings from them and evaluate for any likely fire apparatus that would travel on our county roads. Previously, they were just exempt but that is a nationwide initiative. So we're having
it's
to
a lot more
look at that
complicated
as
than
well.
peop-
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, it's gonna cost us money ultimately.
It's
Now,
just-
I will say, with some of the recent legislative changes, a portion of the all systems permit, 75% of the all systems permit is redistributed to counties. Last year in 2023, Marion County received approximately $24,000. So that is covering some of the cost, only the cost to
doesn't cost-
re-rate.
it doesn't
I mean,
cover the cost of the
I'm looking, staring down, over the next couple of years, I'm staring about $50,000 in re-rating because of that legislative change. So the next couple of years, any potential permit revenue is gonna go towards that. But also it's more wear and tear and shortens the useful life of the bridges
Right.
and the roads, which
Yeah.
is the bigger factor ultimately, is what our County Engineers Association
Yeah.
has
It's
determined.
just a lot more complicated than people realize.
Yeah. So going back to the high level summary of the program, no new pavements or reconstructions planned. So no new paved alignments are programmed and no major reconstruction. So basically you're starting from scratch on our existing alignment. For the most part, we have minimal overlays. So what I have classified as improvements. So we're basically just throwing down a layer of asphalt and not doing things to retard cracking. Now, do we have a few of those? Yeah. And I call those rehabilitations. So mostly improvements with a few rehabilitations on certain routes. Lately, been getting a ton of questions about paving gravel roads. I don't know why. Probably because we've had 3 very dry years and the gravel roads are extremely dusty. And I think we've been getting a lot of those calls actually. So I get a lot of questions on paving roads. So we currently spend, it depends on the volume of road, but $3,000 to $7,000 per year rocking and blading a gravel road per mile. We've been recently doing some gravel road stabilizations on our higher volume roads. Those are in the range of $60,000 to $80,000 per mile, which we've discussed before. If we were to do a pavement, so do a full reclamation of the gravel that's there, inject a chemical and put the minimum amount of asphalt to carry passenger vehicles only, we're about $850,000 a mile. But we can't do that on the vast majority of our system because we have agricultural equipment, we have dump trucks and garbage trucks and all these other heavy loads to accommodate. So that's not practical for us to make a sustainable infrastructure that we're not gonna have to redo in 10 years. So we're really in the $1.4 to $1.8 million per mile range. And then you've heard me say $1 million a mile for new paving before.
Right.
And that's not considering any major regrading, bridge work, culvert work, or any property acquisition. which if you're gonna pave a road, most likely you're gonna have property acquisition because the current gravel road right away can't accommodate a pavement. So just to grade it, minor grading and paving would be 1.5 million roughly. So to pave the 13 miles of our 8 highest volume gravel road segments, we're looking at $20 million. If we were to do the 20 highest volume gravel roads, so that previous number, 20 million would do any gravel road with a traffic volume of 300 vehicles per day or higher. To do anything with 200 vehicles a day or higher, which would be 20 of our highest volume roads, that's 37 million. We get a lot of questions about seal coats and their condition, or why we have to come back every 3 or 4 years to do maintenance on our seal coats. Garbage trucks are terrible on seal coats, and we have to do maintenance. Seal coats is glorified dust control. It's not a pavement. It's hard surfacing. It is not a pavement. It is not meant to withstand the loads of even garbage trucks, let alone dump trucks and semis. If we were to do what I said earlier to accommodate to accommodate passenger vehicles only on our seal coat roads, we have roughly 40 miles of seal coats. We'd be doing, that'd be $18 million. And again, that's not accommodating any heavy truck traffic. This will just be in the residential subdivisions and unincorporated towns that we have. That'd be $18 million on what we already have as hard surface to make it a pavement that is maybe a little more sustainable. So hopefully that clears some things up for folks. Been getting a lot of questions on that.
Expensive.
Our total allocation
pay
of
the
funds,
price.
including what we contribute locally per year towards projects, is less than $4 million on average. More like 3.5, really. And that's to maintain the infrastructure that we already have, which we're not keeping up with right now, really, to be completely honest. And that's not something new that you haven't heard me say before. City projects. So something I want to bring to your attention because it's coming up more and more frequently. We have what we call 50-50 roads or joint jurisdiction roads. We have a number of these with the city of Pella, with Melcher, Dallas, Knoxville, Monroe. We've been getting some requests lately to do projects. So I do not have a proposal for you, but I think in the future, we want to establish some guidelines as a county on how we handle these types of situations. Because I cannot in the future foresee the road department funding these projects. And typically these are local roads for the most part. There are some that are on our farm to market system, and those can be addressed differently. And other counties do have example policies on how they handle these types of situations. So City of Monroe, for example, has recently come to us. They have a paved road on the south side of Monroe. It's county line. It's a 50-50 road segment. City of Pleasantville on 35th. We've done projects with the city of Knoxville and Melcher and Pella before on 50-50 roads. Some of the requests we're getting are gravel upgrades to something or some type of hard surfacing or ultimately pavement. So, City of Pella, 218th University Street Extension. I've heard rumors that they're going to come ask the county for money for that from secondary roads, because a portion of that may lie within the county. Vermeer Road is a major 50-50 road right in front of Vermeer that is past due, and we continue to do maintenance. Our bridge and pavement crew and the city street department over there do a good job of coordinating that work on an annual basis, but that's the problem. Every year we're out there doing things, and it's going to ultimately need something to be done. And then there's other 50-50 and joint projects with the city of Pella. City of Knoxville, we have in the 5-year program, I didn't really highlight this, but we do have what I call the Knoxville area improvements. So, McKimber, East Pleasant, those are 50-50 roads or joint jurisdiction of some type of split. It might not be exactly 50-50. But then also, there's been projects discussed, and some of these, we've talked about through our transportation planning, our transportation planning study that was the Red Rock area location study. The extension of Bell Avenue and potentially Roach. Willits and Bell Avenue come to mind or come up quite a bit. We get lots of inquiries about that, not necessarily from the city, but from other folks, adjacent residents and that sort of thing. And then Melcher Dallas, we've got a couple major farm to market roads that go through Melcher Dallas, and like Pleasantville, we know that there's some gray area there on farm to market extensions through towns of that size of population. There's gray area in the Iowa code. It's kind of up for interpretation. Who gets the money? Federal aid, same way. Those are federal aid routes. And a lot of times the county ends up being the lead on some of those projects. For example, in Melcher Dallas, that's a major, S45 is a major corridor through town that's ultimately going to need something. And then there's also the Melcher Dallas Railroad Bridge. If you're familiar with that on the north side, that is their only means of crossing the railroad tracks in the communities of Melcher and Dallas to get without an at-grade crossing. And currently it's posted at 18 tons, and I think we're on the brink of that weight limit being lowered. And in the near future, I've actually been pressing the city of Melcher on this. Now is the best opportunity they're probably ever going to have to get that funded through federal dollars with minimal or no match. So I've really been pressing them on that. But does that mean that the county is going to have some type of input, whether it's just my time or potential funding? It's possible, but I think for the greater good there, that might be something we have to look at, because that is, for emergency services, that is their only way across the tracks if there was a train. So lots of projects there that are possibly going to be on the brink of discussion. And I think we need to do our due diligence to, have some policies in order as those come up, because I just get those calls more and more frequently. City of Monroe, didn't expect that one. That's not one we think about very often, but yep, sure enough, that is half our road. So, it's extremely beneficial to the county to see Knoxville and Pella growing, but as they grow, these things are going to come up more frequently. And even Melcher Dallas, Pleasantville. So any questions for me?
Board, questions for Tyler?
Thank you, Tyler.
Very good. Tyler, thank you very much. Recommending approval. So is there a motion on this resolution?
Make the motion to approval of resolution 2024-29.
Second.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey.
Aye. Very good. 2024-39, homestead tax credit applications for FY 25.
So, I'll take the
All right.
next bunch or lot to finish it out, if that's
All
okay.
right, that's fine.
And if you don't mind, if I can just give a little bit of explanation, what we're doing is essentially, different credits or exemptions for the next, I think it's 5 resolutions. So this is an annual administrative thing. I need to acknowledge the assessor's office, is actively involved in this process, as well as the treasurer's office. So it's all 3 of us, offices involved over different time periods. But the assessor's office receives all the applications for these tax credits and exemptions. They process them, they enter them onto our system, and they give recommendations for approval or denial. We receive those, bring them to you guys, and also then, if approved, apply to the taxes. And then the treasurer's office deals with collecting the taxes, seeking reimbursement from the state if allowed. And then also when that comes back, going through apportionment to all the cities, schools, townships, everything. So it's quite a process that we go through. Ultimately, the end goal of these is to assist the taxpayers' tax burden on their individual property tax statements.
Right.
So what we're talking about today are, and there's slightly different time periods on a couple of them, I think. But the tax credits and tax exemptions for FY 25. So budgets that are being set now, and for tax statements that will go out in July or August to be collected September 24, March of 25. The state House File 718 that we keep referring to has made changes to some of these tax credits and added some new things as well. like military exemption, that is a straight reduction of your taxable value from 1852 to $4,000. Added the new house file or the homestead 65 exemption. And that's at a fairly, I'm drawing a blank on the amount now. It is going up next year as well for the exemption portion. So that is a new one. The assessor's office processed over 2,000 applications in a very short time frame. That's why that is new this year, the homestead 65 exemption. So individuals, a lot of people took advantage of that, and those will be now reflected on our next upcoming statements. It was a little bit confusing. The apps, was a very tight turnaround to turn the application, and then statements went out last year and they weren't on there. They're applicable, excuse me, applicable this year. So yeah, one of the other things, following up on some of Tyler's joy is that, the state House File 7810 did remove the funding for military exemption, and the homestead 65 exemption. So, it's just less taxable value. We've all been dealing with it already. It's just another thing. And that doesn't just affect the county, that affects the taxable value for the cities and the schools. Those types of things, and everybody just has to deal with it. Right? But, the taxpayer should see that benefit. So unless you guys have questions on process, we have these next individual resolutions for these tax credits individually listed. And if you have questions, we can proceed.
Yeah, well, let's just take we will approve them in order,
Yes,
Jake,
please.
but if there are any questions from the board on
Right.
any of these,
And individually is fine. I just
And-
wanted to
and-
give kind of
yeah.
an overview of where
Yeah.
we were, why this is going. Thank the other offices
mean,
for their
the-
assistance.
the response to the 65 was pretty high.
And it was
wasn't
really big. I don't know, I think you guys have the big, I think it was over 2,100.
Yeah,
And so, and also realize that there are timeframes and everything is kind of behind when it comes to taxes. So, you can see the time frame for the initial homestead and a lot of people, there is a lot of movement in Marion County of buying and selling. So the assessor's office is dealing with new homestead applications a lot, just on a regular basis. That's part of our process. And then also when someone sells and the transfer comes through, they watch to remove a homestead as well. So it's not just adding,
Jake-
and that's not something you guys are approving now. That's process.
The questions I've been asked, if you have already been signed up for a homestead tax
Mhm.
credit, do you have to sign up every year?
So,
Or-
excellent. Question being, once I sign up for any of these credits or exemptions, does it stay? And the answer is yes.
Okay,
You do not need to reapply for homestead credit, military exemption, house file or homestead 65 exemption, family farm credit, any of these. Once you're on, you're on. If
Okay.
you transfer the property, then it changes.
okay. And the next question I had was the homestead tax credit is one tax credit.
Correct?
And now if you're 65 or over, that is a separate homestead tax credit.
You're close, but
Mhm.
your principle is right.
Okay.
So yes, two completely separate things. One is a credit, the homestead credit, this first resolution is the long time homestead credit. And that is a true credit, that comes off the calculation of your taxes. And, the treasurer does seek reimbursement from the state, for that. So we get that back and that's the, 4850 times your current levy. So it changes each year,
Mhm.
but that is a true credit. Once you sign up, you get to keep it. The new homestead 65 is actually an exemption. So, I'm not sure why it's homestead and an exemption, but you know, in my mind.
That's
we've been
what's
doing-
confusing.
Right, but it actually is, and before your taxes are calculated, and that is lowering their taxable value. So you will see it, but you won't
Okay.
see that it was $150.
Right,
Right.
okay, okay,
Steve, that makes sense?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope it
And-
makes sense to anybody that's listening.
And if you have if you have military, it will show the military reduction, then the homestead 65 reduction for your taxable value.
Yeah, one comes off the back end, one comes
Correct.
off the front end.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
just the easiest way to remember.
That's easier to explain to people.
And they just, and they just, anything that's coming off the front end, the exemption portion doesn't get reimbursed.
Right. Good question, though. Keisha. Steve, any other questions on that?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Jake.
Mhm.
Yeah, Jake, thanks for
We appreciate
handling
you
that.
guys working through this. I'm a little bit behind on it, so I'm sorry about that.
No, it's all right. Appreciate the assessor's office working as well on this. Is there a motion on the first one, which would be resolution 2024-39?
So moved.
I'll second.
Well, I think the motion is to approve it.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay. McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
Very good. Next, we have the Homestead 65 tax exemption applications, 2024-40. Is there a motion?
I
Motion
make
to-
a motion, we approve resolution 2024-40.
I'll second.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
Next, we have disabled veteran homestead tax credit, which is 2024-41.
Make the motion to approve resolution 2024-41.
Second.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye. Military exemption tax applications or exemption tax applications, 2024-42.
I make a motion, we approve resolution 2024-42.
Second.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
And then farm family tax credit, 2024-43.
Make motion to approve resolution 2024-43.
Second.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs.
Aye.
Very
Thank
good.
Thank
Jake,
you very
thank
much.
you. Thank you. All right, updates. Steve,
I have none.
Keisha,
No.
and I have none either. Motion to adjourn. Is there one?
Make motion to adjourn.
Second.
McCombs,
Aye.
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner.
Aye.
Very good. We are adjourned. Thank you.